Okay, all righty. If we'll look at that lesson here, Christ's appearance after his resurrection. We studied in lessons before of the crucifixion of Jesus, and then 3 days later, the resurrection of Jesus, and now Jesus' appearance after the resurrection had taken place. We know that he appeared to several different people after his resurrection. He stayed here on earth a few days after his resurrection. I think it was 40 days, I believe is what it was. And before he went back up into heaven. And he made his appearance to several of his disciples, followers, friends of his. He made several appearances. And we're going to study about an appearance or two here. And our memory verse is John 20 and 29. It's going to be one of the verses that we study, so I'm going to read it here. Jesus said unto him, Thomas, because thou hast seen me, thou hast believed. In other words, being you see, you believe. But you know, is that really faith? Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, isn't it? But, you see something, you pretty much believe it. You know, there's an old saying, things happen, and one thing and another. And if somebody tells you that something happened, you kind of leery sometimes about whether believing it. And then when you actually see it happen, why, you can pretty much believe it then. But this is the way Thomas was. But he goes on and says, Blessed are they that have not seen and yet have believed. And that's we'll study on that here as we get to it. The emphasis, you have an adult emphasis there. I'm going to read the junior emphasis, which is not in your quarterly there. But it says, Jesus Christ is really risen. I wasn't there to see it. I wasn't here when Jesus had already risen, the 40 days that he was here on earth. I wasn't here. But I know that Jesus rose from the dead, from the grave. Because why? Well, many saw him alive after his death. And it's recorded in the Bible. That's one reason why I believe that. But another reason that I believe is because he lives within my heart. Because he lives within my heart. We can have a very personal relationship with Jesus Christ. We just got to ask him for forgiveness of our sins, and he'll come into our heart and life, and we can have a very close personal relationship. I have a close relationship with my wife, but I can even have a closer relationship with Jesus Christ. And so that's one good thing. Jesus Christ is the Son of God. That's another statement. He is the Son of God. He has life. He will give us life. Well, don't we have life? I'm breathing and all. People may say, well, I'm breathing, I have life. Yeah, but you don't have life until you have life free from sin. That's when you really have life. Yeah, you have literal life, but you don't have spiritual life until you meet Jesus Christ. When Jesus died, his disciples were very sad. I tried to expound that during the crucifixion through the lesson of Christ's crucifixion. At that time was a dark hour when Jesus died on the cross. That was a very dark hour. But that dark hour had to be gone through in order to purchase our salvation. And that was, yes, it was a dark hour, and the disciples was disappointed. Our Lord and Savior, our Master, is gone now, you know. And so what they were saying. But then in 3 days, why, it became a very happy hour, you might say. The disciples were very sad. All they had hoped for seemed to be gone. That's what it seemed like. Besides, they were afraid those who had killed Jesus might come and take them. And, you know, they seen what happened to Jesus. They seen that the people did not have any mercy on Jesus at all. Not at all. And so they were kind of holed up and kind of staying out of the public eye, so to speak, is what they were doing. They were together in Jerusalem. They locked the doors. What happened the evening of the day Jesus arose? Well, that's what we're going to be studying then. Okay, our first verse there, John 20:19. Then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, remember that's when he arose, the first day of the week. And this is the same evening, that was early in the morning, remember? Before the sun even come up, or crack of dawn, you might say. That's when the ladies went to the tomb, found out he was not there. We studied that last week. Well, this is the evening of that same day here. When the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, came Jesus and stood in the midst and said unto them, Peace be unto you. Isn't that wonderful words? Peace be unto you. You know, what did the angel say to the ladies? Fear not. You know, it's not a time to be afraid. It's not a time to be in a turmoil. You know, when Jesus visits with us, it's a time that peace and serenity can be shown, because that's what Christ is all about peace. It is all about peace and not being afraid. To the 10 disciples on resurrection evening, suddenly Jesus stood in the midst. I say 10 disciples. Judas was no longer with us. He had taken his life. Thomas was not here at the time. We're going to read about that here in a little bit. He was not with them at that time. Why wasn't Thomas with them? I don't know. Had something to do. Something, might have been sick even, you know. But unfortunately, he wasn't here at that time. Suddenly Jesus stood in the midst. He said, Peace be unto you. The disciples had fear and sorrow. They needed that peace. You know, when we need peace, when there comes a time that we may be, what did it say there? Fear and sorrow. Times like that comes to us also. Times like that comes to us. Trials, tribulations, temptations comes to us. If fear and sorrow don't come to you, there'll be other things that'll come, like temptations, trials, stuff like that. That's when we need Jesus and need peace. We need Him all the time. You know, if we have peace a lot of times, it's because Jesus is there with us. He wants us to be in a peaceful mood, in a peaceful mode. He wants us to be that. You know, if we're all frustrated, sorrow, you know, I've heard that medically it'll raise your blood pressure. You know, and it gives you anxiety and one thing and another. You know, Jesus can calm that. Jesus can calm. That's what He was doing to these guys here. You guys, he appears into the room. He says, you guys are afraid. You guys are sorrowful. You guys are in a kind of a turmoil. You don't know what's going to happen next. Well, I'm here to give you that peace, he says. We will need peace in our hearts. Well, they needed peace. And we all need peace in our hearts. Jesus is the only one who can give us that peace. You know, we can condole one another. And am I saying that word right? Console. Thank you. Console one another, you know. But, you know, we never experience full peace from one another until we meet Jesus. And, you know, I can't give you that peace, but Jesus can give that peace. I could try all I wanted to. I could try giving peace, but, you know, I can't do it. But the Holy Spirit and Jesus is the only one that can give that peace to us. And sometimes it comes through someone, and sometimes it just comes to you. Sometimes it may come through a friend or through a spouse or something like that, but it's given from God is where it's at then. Okay, verse 20 and 20, chapter 20, John 20 and 20, the second reading there. And when he had so said, he showed unto them his hands and his side. Then were the disciples glad when they saw the Lord. He showed unto them his hands and his side. What was wrong with his hands? There had been spikes in them hands. That's what it was. The side, what had happened there? You know, that's where he was pierced. He might have even showed him his feet too. You know, I don't know. It doesn't say that, but, you know, he might have even done that. But, you know, when that was showed to them, he showed unto them his hands and his sides, hands with the nail holes, side torn by the soldier's spear. He wanted them to know for sure that he was the same Jesus they knew. The same Jesus that went through the temptation, or went through the trial, and was whipped, and put a crown of thorns on his head, was hanged on the cross, and died. That's the same Jesus that he is talking about. They laid him in the grave. And now here he is, up walking around, alive. That's the same Jesus. And you know, I emphasized a week or two ago, he was dead. When they put him in the tomb, he was dead. He was very dead. He wasn't just knocked out or in a coma. I mentioned that before. But he was dead. But he come alive. He come alive then. He wanted them to know for sure that he was the same Jesus they knew. They had seen this same body crucified. They looked, they knew, and they were glad. Jesus alive. Jesus alive. Don't you think the words came back to him? He said, I'm going to be crucified. You know, when he told Peter that, you know, Peter took him and shook him and says, no, you're not going to be crucified. I'll go with you. Wherever you go, I'll go with you, you know. Well, Peter wasn't quite ready. He wasn't quite up for the challenge, you know, because this happened. And when Peter said he was going to go with him, what happened? Peter hightailed and ran, you know, and got out of there, you know, because of fear. Because of fear. And Jesus went through that all alone. Jesus went through that all alone. Here he is now on the other side, made whole, up walking around. What joy that was to the disciples there. Let's go to verse 24 there, 24 and 25, and it says, But Thomas, one of the 12, called Didymus, was not with them when Jesus came. I don't know what that Didymus means. I think it's because he was a twin. Because one of the twins. I don't know who is. One of two is what Didymus means. Okay, that's what I kind of thought it was. I don't think we have any record of who his twin, well, might have even been a sister. Could have been. I never even thought about that until right now. Could have been a sister. And a lot of times the women was not mentioned by name. Some was, but But anyway, that's we'll kind of settle on that he was a twin. But he was not with them when Jesus came. And again, I said, why wasn't he there? We don't know the reason why. Maybe he was sick. Maybe he had something to do. Maybe, there's many things. But when you miss church, you're going to miss out on something. Here about 4 weeks ago, I guess it was, I missed church because I wasn't feeling good, And, and we didn't have Wednesday night service either. From Sunday to Sunday that I missed, and then to the next Sunday, seemed like forever. And I always say that time goes by in a hurry, but from Sunday to Sunday to Sunday, that seemed like forever. I was anxious to get back to church, I just, we want to be there. I'm sure Thomas wanted to be there, but for some reason he wasn't. For some reason I wasn't there. It's because I was sick. But we don't want to forsake our assembling with one another because it's good. It's good to be among other Christians. It's wonderful. It gives us strength. It gives us encouragement. I can look at Brother Bayless or any of you and I think, well, you're still pressing forward. I want to keep pressing forward too. And that's what we want to do there. Verse 25, the other disciples therefore said unto him, we have seen the Lord. They have great news for him. But, you see that? It says but. There's something there. He said unto them, except I shall see in his hands the print of the nails, and put my finger into the print of the nails, and thrust my hand into his side, I will not believe. It's nice you all are telling me a nice flowery story, but I'm not going to believe it until I actually see it. That's what Thomas kind of is saying there, Thomas not being there missed out on something that day. And when we miss assembling ourselves, like I say, we're going to miss out on something, we might miss out that a visitor was at church or something. We miss that. We might miss out on something else, whatever might happen, or something. A blessing. We're going to miss a blessing. You can almost guarantee that. We're going to miss a service, a message that, well, sometimes it just happens to be that way. But when you get things, glean things out of a message, and then you miss a Sunday, what did I miss? That's what goes through my mind. What did I miss? What is going to be lost, and I'll never know because I missed that message,
We have Facebook and YouTube.
That's one good thing about it. Used to be recorders. Remember those little cassette recorders? Well, I guess it's reel to reel first, and then cassette recorders, and so on. Now we have it where it's live. We can pick it up just anytime we want to, which is great. But he didn't have that. He couldn't go back on Facebook and say, "Okay, guys, let me see what you really saw." He didn't have that. But we, like I said, we do there. But Thomas was not there. When he came, they told him, "We have seen the Lord." But Thomas says, "Oh no, I must put my finger into the print of the nails. I must thrust my hand into his side, or I will not believe." And I added, we miss something every time we miss services. we miss something. Just the fellowship with one another is something that we can glean out of it. And not only the spiritual food that we get from the message, lesson, or whatever might be given. Wednesday evening, we have Brother Bayless brings a little topic or a little lesson. It's not very long, but there's things that we can glean out of that. It doesn't take 2-hour service to be able to glean something out of what God has for you. God can bring that right to you. You pick up on that. I never thought of that before. Apply it to your life and go on down the road and be a stronger Christian for the Lord because of that. And it's always a help when we gather something like that. It's always a blessing when we gather something like that because we can grow. It's just like when we have children, and you set food before them. That's to help them to grow. Well, that's what the pastor does when he preaches to us. He presents that food out there. It's up to us to take it. We have to take it in. He can't force feed us, but we have to take it, and that it all helps there in what God has for us. Verse 26, and after 8 days again, this disciples were within, and Thomas with them. Then came Jesus, the doors being shut, and stood in the midst and said, Peace be unto you. Is that what he said the first time? Pretty much, wasn't it? 8 words. Peace be unto you. Verse 19 there, the very first one we read. Peace be unto you. Again, he wants us to have peace. He wants us to have peace within our heart. We can have peace with one another. We can have peace with our wife, our spouse. We can have peace with that. But the Lord wants peace within our heart. Most of all is what he wants there. 11 disciples, 1 week later, after 8 days, it says the next Lord's Day, the disciples were in the same room. Thomas was with them this time. Again, the doors were locked. Jesus came again. Locks cannot stop Jesus. Locks cannot stop Jesus. A sealed tomb couldn't stop Jesus either. But locks cannot. As before, he said, Peace be unto you. Verse 27. Then said he to Thomas, Thomas, come here. Reach hither thy finger, and behold my hands, and reach thither my hand, and thrust it thy hand, and thrust it into my side, and be not faithless, but believing. Brother Bayless back there mouthing, but believing, You know, if you're not believing, it sounds to me like you're faithless. And without faith, it's impossible to please God. So we need to have the faith that God gives us in that, and exercise the faith that we do have. Thomas, let me read this here. Then he told Thomas to put his finger into his hand and to put his hand into his side. He told Thomas to believe in him. Jesus wants us to do the same thing. Believe in him. No, we can't touch his finger. We can't touch his side. But we have the word that God has given us through many different writers. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Paul. There's many, many different writers that explains to us the things that took place. Paul wasn't there when it happened, but you know that Paul has a lot of good writing. Matter of fact, Brother Bayless read one Wednesday night there in Romans, but you know, Paul, like I said, Paul wasn't there. But Paul experienced Jesus, even though he never did meet Jesus maybe face to face. Paul did on the road to Damascus. He did meet him face to face there. But I mean in literal there then. But you know, we can take what God has for us through these writers that I mentioned. And because they were there, they experienced it. They seen what happened. And they knew what was going on there. Verse 28. And Thomas answered and said unto him, My Lord and my God. You know, I don't know if he had to even touch him. All he had to do is see it. They don't say anywhere where he touched him. Maybe he did, but I don't think he did. I think he realized, okay, my Lord, my God. He made a commitment then. When he saw what he saw, he made the commitment then. Then Thomas knew this really was Jesus. What the disciples, what the other 10 disciples had said was absolutely true. I didn't want to take their word for it, but it was absolutely true. Jesus was, but you know, he made a bigger statement than what really meets the eye here. Jesus was really God, and he recognized that. I think Thomas realized, because what does he say? My Lord and my God. And you know, we have to recognize that in order to be saved. We have to recognize it also. My Lord and my God, said Thomas. Now Thomas believe. You know, and I had something to the commentary there, which I'm reading junior commentary. It's not in your book, but I added this. This is how Thomas got his nickname, Doubting Thomas. You know, we always talk about Thomas. And you know, the world out there even talks about, you know, if you're doubting, why you're a doubting Thomas. They know what's going on, you know. How would you like to have that nickname, Doubting Thomas? But you know, Thomas got it straightened out though. Thomas got it straightened out. He realized, you know, yeah, he might have doubted for a little while, you know, but he got it straightened out. And you know, it's not how you started out, it's how you wind up your race in things. You know, all of us kind of got a rough start. You know, I was 8 years old before I turned my heart and life over to Jesus. But you know, from the time that I reached the age of accountability to the time that I got saved, I didn't believe. I was doubting Larry. You know, I was doubting. I didn't know. But you know, one day God got a hold of me, and the doubts are gone now. There's no doubting anymore. Verse 29, which is our memory verse. Jesus said unto him, Thomas, because thou hast seen me, thou hast believed. He believed. Jesus said that. He believed. But he goes on and says, blessed or happy are they that have not seen and yet have believed. You know, in order to believe, we have to have faith. And you know, there's a scripture that says in order to get saved, you have to have faith. But you know, we just don't conjure that faith up. Well, I'm going to get saved, so I'm going to conjure up enough faith to get saved. No, God gives you that faith. You don't conjure it up, but God gives you that faith. He gives you just enough faith to get you saved. He gives you just enough. He's never short, but He gives you enough to get saved. And when you turn your heart and life over to Him, then that faith that He gives you, man, I can live for Jesus, and that gives me a little more faith. And then as we live our life, a little more faith, a little more faith. Thomas got a real lesson on this, on faith. Learning, knowing, blessed. He says, blessed are they that have not seen and yet believed. The adult commentary says, because thou hast seen me, thou hast believed. This is better than a stubborn spirit of unbelief, which will not believe even though it sees. And you know, we seen that in the Pharisees. You know? And you know, that is, you're really on thin ice when you're in a condition like that. Matter of fact, I think you've already fallen through, you know, when you're in a condition to that. But better than either is childlike faith that believes without seeing. You know, you can take a child and if he's raised by, say, his father, or, you know, somebody that really cares about them, you could stand a young child up on that piano and say, jump into my arms. That child will jump, trusting that you're going to catch them. They will. They'll do that. And you know, that's what we need to do with Christ, you know. When He tells us to leap out there, leap out there. It'll be right. It'll be the right thing to do. Leap out there and do what He has for us to do. Jesus called such blessed when He done that, when you do that. You know, it's just not a blind leap, but it's a faith in Jesus. It's a faith in Jesus Christ to be able to leap out there when He tells us to, and to do that. I'm going to read the junior emphasis here. Jesus said, blessed are they that have not seen and yet believe. We have not seen Him yet. Nevertheless, we can believe in Him, and we have to. The Bible tells of Him. That's what I was emphasizing there. Writers of the Bible, the authors, gave us what has happened, and we can believe them there. We can see how He saved people and answers prayer. Have faith, believe, and He says never doubt. There's a couple of verses that we're going to go to chapter 21 and 1, but there's two more verses after the 29. One of them is verse 30. Many other signs did Jesus do, but was not recorded in the book. That's kind of I'm paraphrasing that. But then verse 31, I thought was a good one here. I want to go ahead and read it. When these are written, that ye must believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing ye might have life through His name. By believing in Him and knowing that He is Christ, He is the Son of God, we will have life through His name. And we can be so thankful for that. It's almost like John 3:16. It's almost like a rewritten of John 3:16. Jesus is faithful to record God. I'm sorry, let me start all over. God was faithful to record this for us. God gave the authors what they needed to write there. They were inspired by God to write so that we can have it then. Okay, now let's go to chapter 21 and 1. After these things, Jesus showed Himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias. Is that how you pronounce that? Which is the Sea of Galilee. And on this wise showed He Himself. There were together Simon Peter and Thomas called Didymus, and Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, and the sons of Zebedee, and two other of His disciples. Simon Peter said unto them, I go a-fishing. They say unto him, we also go with thee. They went forth and entered into a ship immediately, and that night they caught nothing. The adult emphasis, I'm going to read that there. At the seashore later, at the Sea of Tiberias. same as Galilee. His disciples had gone to Galilee as he had said. 7 are together. At least 4, perhaps 6, are of the original apostles. Peter said, I go a-fishing. Confused and unsettled, he turned to his old trade. You know, sometimes we might get a little confused. We might get a little unsettled. But you know, let's not turn away from God. Let's turn to God, because He's the one that can settle us down and fuse us up. I say confused, you know, but He'll fix us up to where we won't be confused then. Caught nothing, you know. As they were out there fishing, and these are professional fishermen too, they caught nothing. No doubt this was God's plan. Remember, some of these were experienced professional fishermen. The disciples went to Galilee as Jesus had told them. 7 were fishing. All night they caught nothing. All night they caught nothing. But when the morning was now come, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples knew not that it was Jesus. Have you ever seen a figure out there, and you didn't know who it was? And you know, you're kind of leery about that person. And then winds up being maybe a best friend or somebody you know very well. It changes your reaction to what you saw, to what you really know it is then. Then Jesus said unto them, Children, have you any meat? They answered him, No. And he said unto them, Cast the net on the right side of the ship, and ye shall find. They cast therefore, and now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fishes. All night they caught nothing. But in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore. His disciples did not recognize him. He told them to cast the net on the right side of the ship. They did. They caught so many fish they were not able to drag the net. John knew by this miracle that this was Jesus. Why did John know that? Why did John know that? Well, I don't know. You know, John was considered the disciple that Jesus loved. John, okay, yeah, he loved them all, but maybe their personality just got along real good together. I don't know what. And he was the youngest. Yes, I think he was the youngest. And he was probably one that they kind of kept their wings over, kind of watch out for him because him maybe being younger and all. But John knew by this miracle that this was Jesus. He was the first one to recognize, hey, that's Jesus over there. He said, it is the Lord. That's found in John 21:7. We are not going to read that. It's one of the verses we skipped. The disciples hurried to the shore then. They seen that figure out there, and they did what the figure said, by casting the nets on the other side. And, then John recognized, hey, that's Jesus. That's who Daddy is. We need to recognize who Jesus is. We need to be able to recognize Him. We have to be familiar with Him in order to recognize Him. If I meet somebody and I had never met them before, I don't know who they are. But if it's somebody that I know, you might not recognize them right off at first. But as you talk and as you mingle, oh, okay, yeah, I know who this is. And, you recognize them then. So, we need not to ever not be able to recognize Jesus. We need to always, now there may be a time that we don't recognize Him right off, But you know, if we stay in tune and have a good, great relationship with Jesus, He'll make Himself known to us when we need that time to come. Can anybody tell me how many fishes they caught that day? That's just a question I'm asking. 153. That's how many fishes was in the net. 153. That just added something. that number rings a bell. Every time I hear that number, I always think of that. You know, there's certain numbers that ring, and that's one that does ring a bell to me. Even though it's not all that common of a number, 153, but you know, it kind of sticks in my mind anyway. Of course, you know how I am with numbers anyway. Verse 9. So much for that. As soon then as they were come to the land, they saw a fire of coals there, and fish laid thereon, and bread. There, Jesus had a fire with fish already cooking, and bread there. Verse 12, Jesus said unto them, Come and dine. And none of the disciples durst ask Him, or none of them dared ask Him, Who art thou? Knowing that it was the Lord. I think John realized that it was the Lord. I think Thomas probably realized it was the Lord. I believe they really did realize it was the Lord, but you know, they had been with Him long enough that they kind of probably had a guilty feeling that I should know that He is the Lord. You know, we know that He is the Lord. We have to know that He is the Lord in order to be saved. Jesus saying, Cometh and taketh bread and giveth them, and fish likewise. Jesus said, Come and dine. They knew He was the Lord, but they were afraid to say so. Jesus gave them bread and fish. They ate breakfast together. Excuse me. Verse 14 there. This is now the third time that Jesus showed Himself to His disciples. After that, He has risen from the dead. This was now the third time they saw Jesus after that He was risen from the dead. Do you think anyone could have told those disciples that Jesus had not risen? Do you think that at this time now, that if somebody would have come and told Peter or James or John, Jesus hasn't risen yet, I don't think they would have believed him. They would have said, they would have fought vehemently for Him. This is Jesus. Brother Buzz back there, this is Jesus. We know that. We know that. And so I don't think there was any denying or getting them to deny that. They knew. We know too if we've been saved. We can argue just as vehemently for Him because we know He lives within our heart. We can live. He is living. He died. Oh, yes, He did. But He rose again in order to save us. And, you know, we can be so thankful that, you know, there could have been any number of times that Jesus could have just thrown His hands up and says, I don't want to go through with this. Remember in the garden. Remember that prayer in the garden. 3 times. What if He'd only just prayed twice and give up? You know. Nope. He prayed 3 times and He settled that part right there. And, you know, when He settled that part right there, He pretty much settled the whole thing, but He had a lot to go through yet. He could have backed out any time of that. But, you know, I think He had everything settled right there in that garden. But boy, He had a lot to face yet. When, remember Judas, how Judas came and betrayed him with a kiss. How he went through such a trial that was so formed against him, a false trial like it was. The whippings that he went through, the physical abuse, the blood that was shed, even before he got on the cross. And then after he got on the cross, the blood that was shed there, the anguish, the agony, the terribleness of hanging on the cross. And, he could have put a stop to it just any time. But, he had things settled. We, as people, having things settled in our heart with Jesus and ready to grow and take in the things that Jesus has for us, just like a little bird when the mother comes with a worm or food or whatever it might be. However many birds is in that nest, all mouths open, ready to take it in. That's the way we need to be. Yes. Is our mouth wide open, ready to take it in. And the mother will stick it in one's mouth, The others won't get any, because that's the one that needs it. Next time she flies off and comes back in, then, it's another one, Flies off again. Oh, it's my turn this time, and that's the way we need it. Oh, it's my turn. Oh, goody, it's my turn. That's the way we need to be when we're taking in the things that God has for us. Oh, goody, it's my turn, so to speak. It's my turn. Take it in. And, sometimes it might step on our toes a little bit, but, that's all right. We can correct whatever might be wrong and help us in the growth that we need to grow. And so I want to read this. Be not faithless in the consideration points to consider. I'm going to read that. Be not faithless. All his day where Jesus had to urge people to believe. All his day he urged people to believe in him. And we as people, that's the message we have to take out there, is to have people to believe in him. It's not me. I'm just the messenger, I'm just the messenger. I'm not the good news. I may be the bearer of the good news, but I'm not the good news. It's Jesus that's the good news. Now at its close, he still has to. What would he say to us were we here? If he were here? We are prone, like Thomas, to doubt unless we see, and sometimes even after we see. This grieves God. We have to take the things that God has for us in. God cannot lie. God cannot lie, so we know what it is. Faith is that arm by which we reach and take hold of God and his blessing. Faith is that. My arm's not long enough, but my faith reaches out there and grabs a hold of it. We must have faith. And Jesus told Thomas that he was faithless, He was faithless. That was a big criticism to him, because we must have faith. Jesus sets no limits to the possibilities of faith. Why should we? Why should we, if Jesus does not put any limits on it? He said, all things are possible to him that believe. That's found in Mark 9:23. So all things, he says what? All things are possible to him that believe. The only thing, we have to be in the center of God's will. We have to be right in the center of God's will. And God will supply us with what we need You know, we may have a wish list like a Christmas list. You know, oh, I wished I was this and I wished I was that. I wished I could do this and I wished I could do all that. You know, but you know, God don't supply them wants that you, or those wishes that you get. He supplies you with the needs so that He can work through you. And you know, I may never be a real good speaker. I'm not a good speaker, and I may never be a good speaker, but you know, God will give what I need to me when I need it. And that's all I can ask for. That's all that we can ask for. Lord, that your will be done. And that's what we strive for. Our next lesson will be Christ's ascension. And so next Sunday we'll see what God has for us there. Thank you.